Hello, all, and welcome to the next episode of 30 Days of Amplify. My name is Amandeep Singh, and I'm from team AWS User Group India. Today, we have two excellent speakers with us. Just a quick recap. In the last 3 weeks, we have um, done a lot, right from the basics of AWS Amplify to some deep concepts, including a hands on workshop, which was conducted by Sully yesterday. So we have covered a lot of ground, and this also includes the ongoing AWS hackathon. Um, just a quick announcement that the last date was today, but we have extended the deadline to 3 more days. Now the deadline is 23rd of November 2024. So today we have Vishal that he is joining us. Let me bring Vishal on stage. Just give me one moment. Hi Vishal, how are you?
Hello, I'm doing good. How are you doing, Amandeep?
I'm good as well. Thanks for asking. Vishal is a core team member of AWS UG India. He was recognized an AWS hero last year, and he has done a lot of contributions to AWS community at large. He's one of the role models that we have in the community. He is going to present how to use AWS Amplify as a backend service today. So all the best, Vishal, and over to you.
Thank you. Thanks, Amandeep. So, hello guys. Hope you are doing well. If you are in Maharashtra, I'm sure you have done the voting today. It's your right, and you must have done. I have done it today, so you can see it. So, without much delay, let's start with our today's topic. That is AWS Amplify as a backend service. So, Amandeep has already introduced me. Apart from that, I am working as a senior software engineer at Forcepoint Software, and I'm also leading AWS User Group Pune. uh, okay, so if you have attended previous sessions that we had earlier in this series, many people have covered about what is AWS Amplify, what are the things that you need to take care when you are building an application using AWS Amplify, what are the basic requirements, how you can build a full stack application without knowing the much complex things and tools and services that are required for your applications. Okay, so we are going to dive more into the backend services, building backend services, and we are going to see what are the things that we need when we are building those backend services, and what are the core components when we are using AWS Amplify for that, right? So let's start with that. Let me pull up my slides. And those Yeah, so let's start quickly with the AWS Amplify. Uh, AWS Amplify, if you have attended earlier sessions, every speaker has spoke about it. But if you're new to this today's session, if you are here with the social media post that we have shared, you might have, if you have attended this for this first time, let me tell you, AWS Amplify is a set of tools and services that help developers to quickly build the full stack applications without knowing much of the complexities that are required. So you can think of it as a Swiss Army knife for building cloud-powered applications. Okay. So today will be focusing specifically on the backend capabilities for this particular AWS Amplify, and If you have any questions, feel free to put them in the chat, and I would be able to assist you with your queries as well. And we are a team of AWS Amplify experts here from the AWS User Groups India. They'll be able to answer those queries as well. Okay, let's move to the next slide. So when you are talking about this AWS Amplify, I just talk about it is a powerful tool that simplifies your backend development for your web and mobile applications, and like it offers you the pre-built components over there. And there are services that can be easily integrated in your existing projects, or if you are building any new projects. So if you talk about the key capabilities of this particular AWS Amplify, it is authentication. So when you talk about building any application backend, there are a few things that that click in your mind. That is, primarily we think about data storage, right? And after that, we think about the security. We think of the authentication. So all those are again the key capabilities of AWS Amplify backend application. Along with that, the API is there. We have storage. We have CDN for the fast content delivery. Then we have functions, serverless functions that we can integrate with other AWS services and use it there. Okay, so apart from that, no, this helps us to for the rapid application development. So it basically simplifies your backend development by quickly building and deploying those applications, right? So here scalability is one of the major things that we need to take care when we are building the applications, right? So when we are using AWS Amplify as a backend service, automatically it scales your backend as your application grows. So you don't have to for those capabilities. After that, security is one of the features, and AWS Amplify provides you the built-in security features that protect your data, and then it is again cost-effective with the pay-per-use pricing model. We are going to see in next slides more deep dive into those sections. So let's move to the next slide. Yeah, we talked about the key benefits, and we are going to see one of the things, what are the key benefits, how it helps to be agile in your software development, how it makes your software robust and secure. Let's see how that works. Okay, so let's move to the core components of this AWS Amplify. What are the things? So first thing is authentication. So when we are talking about authentication, AWS Amplify provides you with the various ways of authentication that will handle your user signups and user sign-ins. So when we talk about the user signups or sign-ins, the first clear thing that you have in your mind is getting inside with some kind of credentials, right? So AWS Amplify provides you with the authentication using AWS Cognito, as well as it provides you with the single sign-on. We are going to see that again in next slides, but just to give a brief overview of what things we are going to cover. Uh, uh, Authentication is one of the things. So yeah, and it also helps you to securely store and manage your user data as well. So next slide is about uh, social login integration, right? So when we talk about the social login integration, Amplify will help you with integrating the third party authentication systems like Facebook, Google, or even SSO, enterprise SSO applications like Okta to be integrated with the social login, and you can simplify your authentication process and enhance more user friendly experience with your users. Okay, next thing is user data storage management. When we are talking about the authentication and authorization of particular users, AWS Amplify will provide you the tools for storing your user data, so that your data is secure, stored securely and efficiently, and it is compliant with the compliances that you have configured in your AWS account. Next is data storage that we talked in the core components of AWS Amplify. So in data storage, it creates real-time offline and online data synchronization capabilities for your applications, right? Then next thing about data storage is it will model and query your data efficiently. It will help you to model the data, and when you're synchronizing or you're accessing your data from your various sources like various client devices or uh, various locations, it will help you to synchronize that data securely. And when we talk about security, it ensures the security and privacy with its built-in features that are there with the AWS Amplify. Okay. Then we have, yeah, we talked about the data modeling and security already. It will help you with the querying, enabling the developers to create the structured data storage for your applications. Okay. Then ensuring data security and privacy. In the previous point, we discussed just or I briefly explained you those things. So AWS Amplify will make sure that the data that uh, you are storing, and that is being flown from that is being transferred from your network via AWS Amplify. Uh, AWS Amplify provides you the inbuilt mechanisms like encryption and IAM or role-based access controls in order to ensure that your sensitive information remains protected throughout your software lifecycle and when your data is flowing from database, front end, and back end, right? Then next one is API management. So API, when we are talking about API, we can use AWS Amplify in order to build GraphQL APIs that can power your front end. And then again, you can integrate the REST APIs in order to communicate with any kind of applications or third-party providers as well. Then you can secure your APIs within tokenization or authentication and authorization processes. Yeah, we just talk about integrating the how we can integrate it with the REST APIs. And yeah, AWS Amplify provides you with the robust API security mechanisms that can be implemented to access the serverless or AWS Amplify applications using the role-based access controls, and we can fine-tune the permissions of users for accessing the different resources that are created using AWS Amplify. Okay, let's go through the storage solutions that we have with AWS Amplify. Uh, when we are talking about storage, AWS Amplify provides you the way to store and retrieve your files reliably and securely. So these files include your media, user-defined, user-created files, or any kind of storage that user wants to, any kind of media that user want to store in that Amplify applications. Okay. So AWS Amplify will also help you to process those images and videos. And as we discussed earlier, AWS Amplify will deliver those contents globally using the CDN. We talked about that again, cloud delivery network with the storage. Okay, this was the general overview, what we can do and what things we need to things we need when we are things we need to know when we are building application within AWS Amplify. So let's look at building a backend application with AWS Amplify, how it is, how we can do it, what things we need to consider, and what is the best practices. So when we are setting up AWS project, starting an AWS Amplify project involves initializing a new project via CLI and simplifying the serverless applications and configuring those things with rest of the AWS services. So I guess if you have attended the previous sessions, you can go through the basics of Amplify to create a new project. Many of the speakers have already explained that. You can go through our YouTube playlist and look at the previous videos of this series to understand how we can get started with a new project and how we can build it. Okay. And next one is Okay, so once you have your application ready, you have created your application using Amplify, CLI, or UI. Next thing is adding authentication to your application. So specifically, when we are talking about backend, authentication is very important when we are talking about security, right? So in order to enable the authentication for your Amplify, you need to create the user pools and identity pools. So you can use AWS Cognito service in order to uh, uh, implement those things. And yeah, if you see on the screen, there is sample code that can be implemented for configuring the authentication and creating the sign up for your application. Okay, so you can implement that authentication flows using the Amplify's UI components as well. You can use any kind of UI components. You can use social login components as well and enable the authentication for your applications. Okay. Next one is uh, data models. So when you are defining data model and structures for your applications, you need to map the relationships with your entities that you have in your application, right? So when you are using Amplify, the structured approach that we are following for adding the data storage, that will help you to create the data stores and store and retrieve that data in an effective manner. And again, these particular data models will help you to perform the CRUD operations on your data and provide that data to your front ends, right? Then APIs, when we are talking about APIs, creating the GraphQL APIs for your application. So this is one of the diagrams that shows how you can create application using GraphQL and how you can integrate it with multiple AWS services in order to create a backend for your application. Okay. So when we are talking about adding the APIs for your application, we will when we are talking about Amplify, like we'll create a GraphQL API that will expose your data to your front end or your control plane and then to your front end. And then it will resolve the data sources. If you are using the multiple data sources, it will resolve those data sources, bring that data and provide it to your GraphQL resolvers that we are using, right? It will write the resolvers and it will provide that data. Okay, then after these particular APIs, next part comes for the backend is file management. So uploading and downloading of the files is one of the things when we are talking about the storage, right? So as we talked, AWS Amplify supports View with the seamless file transfers using AWS S3, or you can use it with the backend storages in order to access your media and platforms. And also it helps you to optimize the files. It will process your images and videos and transform it to the your intended outputs, right? Okay, next one is adding the functions to your application. So with the AWS Amplify, the serverless functions in AWS Amplify will help you to handle the custom logic that is required for your applications. So with that, you don't have to think about the complex scenarios that are required when you are building the functions and you are integrating that with your database, with your external resources that are required for your application, right? Might be the security related components, might be the API endpoints. You don't have to think about that. So and when we are talking about the serverless functions, they are the trigger functions that are based on particular events. If a particular event happens, then those are triggered by external events or any kind of API calls that we can configure in the UI or in the code as well. Okay. So apart from these, if you talk about the functions, serverless functions, I'm going to show you the example. If you have some time, we can go through the demo for those serverless functions as well. Uh, Next part is let's go through the key features and benefits of Amplify when we are using it as a backend. We saw a few of the key features or the components, right? First one is rapid development, right? How does it help when we are using AWS Amplify instead of traditional ways of developing your application and deploying that on-prem or any kind of cloud components? How the AWS Amplify is more efficient and reliable way. Okay, so when the rapid development is concerned, when it is agile world, right? Everyone is trying to build fast and do it as fast as possible. So with the rapid application development, we can enable the we can use the pre-built components that are there, and also we can use the templates, ready-made templates that we can use in order to implement few of the features that you have in your front end and back ends, right? Then for building the front end, you can use drag and drop interface, and you can integrate that easily with your serverless functions or with the uh, backend storage, that backend connections or endpoints that you're writing for your applications. The next one is very important when you are concerned about the deployments of your applications, and when there is complexity of various DevOps tools and DevOps pipelines when deploying those applications. So AWS Amplify will help you with the automating those deployments and making sure that you don't have to go into much complexities for deploying those applications. So it will more focus on the quick iterations instead of going through the deeper integrations, and if there are some repeated tasks, it will help you to automate those things. And so as a developer, you can focus on actual development instead of those deployment strategies and deployment tools, right? Okay. Yeah, we talked about the automated deployments. AWS Amplify can help you with the processes and the seamless integrations with other AWS services in order to avoid the man-made errors, and in order to make that process faster and easier for the users. Okay, next one is scalability and auto scaling of those resources. When we talk about the scalability, uh, there might be the variations in your particular application access. If you take an example of Amazon shopping shopping website, where if there are some kind of sale or any kind of events like Black Friday is there in upcoming days. So in that case, your traffic might grow to 100 or 1000x as well. So in that case, scalability matters. And when we are talking about the scalability, if you are following the traditional approaches, or if you have your application on consider on premises or any kind of VM based systems, you are responsible to manage or scale those applications as per your traffic and as per your resource utilization. So in AWS Amplify, you don't have to think about those things. AWS Amplify will scale your backend resources so that and it is all automated based on the your application demands, and it will ensure that your application is consistently performing and serving to those requests, and it will scale, and you don't have to do any manual intervention in order to do the scaling, right? Okay, apart from that, it will make sure that you have high availability and fault tolerance for your application. And this particular platform is actually the application that are built using this platform are inbuilt fault tolerance. So there are templates that make sure that your application has those things implemented already over there. So there is we can say there is minimal or zero downtime, operational downtime for your applications. The next one is security. Yeah, I majorly talk about security, and when we are developing any kind of front end application or back end application or any kind of software things, you need to make sure that security has been considered and has been implemented. I talk about the shared responsibility model, and I talk about various security practices, best practices in my all of these speaker sessions. So when we are talking about security for AWS Amplify, AWS Amplify provides you the built-in security features that are like you can consider about the encryption, end-to-end encryption for your traffic that flows from various AWS Amplify components. Also, it will make sure that you are compliant with the industry standard. It helps you to ensure that all the data and all the implementations that you are using with the AWS Amplify, you don't have to think about the compliances. It will make sure that the compliances that you are considering are being implemented to the application that you are building. And it will again help you to safeguard your application against the threats and vulnerabilities that might come from the hackers, or any kind of possible threats that might come to your systems. So all these features that will help you to create a secure development environment. And being a developer, if you have the basic understanding of implementation of security, and if you're taking care, so again I would say AWS Amplify won't help you to entirely secure your end-to-end application. Because if you think yeah, as I told you in other sessions, or if you heard about AWS shared responsibility model, you are equally responsible for implementing the security. So when you are building the application, you need to make sure that you are implementing the tokenization or authentication for your APIs for your backend. So all those things you need to implement, and you need to plan for your backend. And again, we are talking about, when we are talking about the front end that is connected to this backend, you need to provide a secure way that is integrated with additional security measures like multi-factor authentication or single sign-on capabilities, in order to make sure that your application is accessed only by the authenticated users, right? Okay. Let's move to the next part about security for data storage and transmission. So AWS Amplify again helps you with the built-in security features for the data storage and transmission. When we talk about the encryption, those that the data that flows from the data that from the backend to front end, as well as from the end-to-end services, is again encrypted. And when you are talking, when both of the ways, like data that is in the storage as well as that is in the transition, both the ways data is stored and secured. And this will protect the sensitive information from leaking, from the leakage or from unauthorized access, because it's encrypted. And even if the hacker tries to get inside your system or tries to steal your packages from your transmission, he won't be able to understand anything, because that would be encrypted with the keys that are there with your account, using created in KMS or your custom keys, right? So that increases your trustworthiness for your application. People will trust more about your application, and that will help you to gain more customers for your applications. Next thing is in the security is role-based access control. We all know about the airbag. You might have heard this uh, particular term. So airbag will allow you your users. So when we talk about the granular permissions, if you have heard about AWS IAM has policies and roles as per the user access levels, and you can create granular permissions, you can create fine-grained permissions and guardrails for the users in order to access your AWS resources. Similarly, in the AWS Amplify implements the RBAC in order to allow the granular permissions for users, to ensure that users have access to the only required information and services that are necessary for their operations and applications. So this will again enhance the security and compliance for your applications, and you'll make sure that no external user that doesn't have the required permissions, or the user that is accessing that user but does not need to have particular part of that particular application, will not have the access to that particular application part, right? Okay, next part we talked about the everything about security. We talked about the scalability. We talked about the rapid development, how we can be agile when we are talking when we are developing these kind of applications. And when we are considering the backend, we talked about the storage, security, and encryption, right? But when it comes to the cost, uh, as a developer, we start developing the things, and we create the code, And when it comes to the deployment, the actual cost thing comes into the picture, right? So there are multiple ways to deploy your application. Like if you're using any kind of front end and back end technology, there are multiple ways. But AWS Amplify is again a cost effective way that uses a pay per use pricing model. So you don't have to pay any kind of upfront cost for your application. You just have to get your code and deploy that using AWS Amplify. So that is known as pay per use pricing model that is provided by AWS Amplify. So that is one of the cost effective ways, because you don't have to invest in heavily for your backend or for your bare metal servers, for your database. Neither you have to pay any kind of monthly cost for or recurring cost for your applications. Okay, so this particular thing will help you to optimize the resource utilization of your applications. You can keep monitoring the things that what things are consuming the more cost. And this particular model is particularly more helpful for the startups or the small businesses who are starting their application development, and they have very limited budget. They don't have any kind of uh, funding, or they are running on limited budget, and they don't have actual income that is started from the customers. So they can go with this particular approach, and that will be very helpful. Again, when that particular startups are growing, AWS Amplify will again help them scaling their business, and then uh, optimizing the cost, optimizing the resources that are being used for that particular applications, and they can seamlessly run that particular application that is developed with Amplify as a front end and back end both, right? So this is one of the way. And when we are talking about cost, it comes into the multiple things. If you are using any kind of integrated services, like in third party services, like consider you are using uh, text based notifications for your user from your application AWS Amplify, and you are using Twilio, for example, and you are using some APIs. So you'll need to consider the third party service costs as well when you're integrating those services. When you are considering to deploy that on AWS Amplify. So the when you are thinking about building a backend and you are integrating with the APIs, there are API costs, API access costs also involved in that particular scenario. There might be some data transfer costs from your third party vendors that you need to consider. If you're storing your data outside the AWS, might be not in S3, but you're opting for any external services that are being accessed using the APIs, you can consider that particular data storage costs as well, right? And if you are implementing any advanced security services like denial of service protection or any security services, then those costs will again you'll need to consider those costs in order to make your applications cost efficient. And with you can deploy your applications with those cost efficient ways. Yeah, we talked about the cost effective and no upfront cost for your application. So this would be very helpful when developers have just started and just they are implementing few things. They are trying out how they can implement. There are two benefits of this thing. First one is cost, because if you are running a startup, or if you're trying some POCs for your application, you don't have to think about the backend things. Like you don't have to think where I can storage my data, how can I implement the security, how can I implement rest of the complex backend things like network, firewall, and all those things. You don't have to think about it, right? Yeah, and I guess we are about to wrap up. Let's go through quick of the conclusions of today's session and summary. Uh, how we can what things AWS Amplify provides, and how it will help you to build your secure and robust backend, and how it will do it. So we saw what are the key benefits of those services that are built using AWS Amplify as a backend. So first benefit we saw was rapid development. In agile world, you need to make sure that you are quickly building and deploying your applications. So AWS Amplify will make sure that uh, you are capable of doing those things as fast as possible, and you are deploying those applications, and you are doing those things in iteration, so that you are making those features readily available for your customers in faster way. After that, scalability. When you are talking about scalability, AWS Amplify will automatically scale your backends as your application grows. It will keep monitoring your resources and traffic, and it will grow as per your applications. Apart from that, it has a built-in security features that will protect your data, and it will help you to improve the access of that particular applications by implementing the secure sign-ons or using encryption technologies for your data that is being stored, or that is in transit for your application. And last one, we saw the cost. That is again one of the important factors when you are developing your software. uh, Cost effective way of using this AWS Amplify is a pay per use pricing model that AWS Amplify provides, and you don't have to pay any kind of upfront cost. You just need to take your code and start using AWS Amplify, and you can start with it, and you have to pay per use. You don't have to pay fixed hourly or monthly or any kind of upfront cost for your access, right? We saw about the services that we can integrate, like we can integrate any kind of third-party services or AWS services. We can build your API or APIs using GraphQL, and you can use AWS services like AWS Cognito for user authentication. You can you can use the inbuilt templates for social media, social accounts logging, and you can log into your Amplify applications using your social accounts. You can store your data securely on S3 backends. Again, there is additional layer of security when you are storing your data in S3. You can configure your policies in your S3 bucket for your S3 bucket. You can use DynamoDB for storing data, or you can use relational databases like MySQL in order to access your data from there. And again, you can build your front end on any of your choice. Like you can use AWS AppSync or any kind of your favorite technologies in order to build your front end, and you can build it for multiple devices. Like you can use it for desktop, you can use it for mobiles, or any kind of devices that you want to build. So I would say AWS Amplify is one of the services that everyone should be aware of when they are starting or planning for the development of any kind of applications that has front end and back end involved, and that will certainly help you to save the cost, save from the complexities, and make sure when you're starting you don't have to jump into the complexities, and uh, do the software development in agile way without going much into the complexities. Hope that helps, and we can go through the questions if you have any. And uh, yeah, I think yeah, we are good for today. If you have any questions, yeah, Mandeep, uh, if you have any questions in chat, we can go through them.
Thanks, Vishal, for the great session. I think we don't have any questions, and most of them were answered. There is just one. By Viresh is trying to compare AWS Amplify with Azure DevOps.
I'm married to AWS. I don't know about Azure DevOps, frankly speaking. But Aman, if you should know, you can answer this question. I would say I don't know anything about Azure.
Sure, sure. So when you say DevOps, it's basically it's development plus operations, right? So uh, can you please elaborate the question more? It's would you like to rephrase the question, Viresh? Okay. So there are more comparison questions that are coming in. How is Amplifier different from Elastic Beanstalk? Elastic Beanstalk is yeah. First, would you like to answer that?
Yeah. So Elastic Beanstalk is kind of different. It is if you think about the earlier ages where there was a shared hosting. uh, if you know GoDaddy, or if you know about HostGator or any kind of cPanel hosting, right? You had a interface where you could bring your code, or there were applications like soft regulars where you could install the applications like self-hosted applications like WordPress or anything. So Elastic Beanstalk is, or EB, is similar to that, and it does not have any kind of scaling capabilities. It is just simple to use and easy to use applications for the people who are getting started with it, and they don't want to get into any of the complexities for, and they don't basically don't have technical expertise to deploy those applications. AWS Amplify is different. When you are actually into the development and you're developing the code, then you can implement the applications. So yeah, EB is again, thanks Avinash. It is kind of server based application. So when we are talking, there are servers and things involved in the backend, and when we are talking about AWS Amplify, those are serverless in nature. And Elastic Beanstalk, when we are talking, we just have to know about the service that we are trying to deploy. We don't need to think about what is the backend, uh, what are the technologies. You can just bring your software, and there are advanced modes as well when you are talking about EB. But with the basic mode that we can go with the Elastic Beanstalk, we can just simply deploy your applications with a simple click, and you don't have to think about the security and complexity and rest of the things. But for the, yeah, as I told you, for the self-hosted applications, you can use EB when you are getting started with the particular applications and you want to try the things. But if you want to customize or build your own applications, AWS Amplify is very good choice, and you can create backend as you want. You can implement it in any ways, right?
Cool. Thanks, Vishal. There's another question. We'll take this last one, and then we'll move on to our next session. So, last question. As a daily routine practice, what type of task can we build on top of AWS Amplify?
Yeah, you can create a static website that you need, like if you think that you want to create a web page for your event, you can define, you can create it. If you want to create you have use case for any school where database is connected and you need to store some data of some students, you can create that. Any kind of CRUD application, you can host it there. Or you, if you have any kind of front end particular front end technologies like Next.js, Front or React, you can implement that and host your applications with any kind of services that you want to implement. And then you can create the APIs using Amplify as a backend, and use those APIs to connect to your other services on AWS. And yeah, you can use those APIs to be most cost effective, and in order to make sure that you don't want to fall into the complexities of your applications, right? Yeah,
Just
you
to
can
add,
add. Yeah,
just to add to that, it's as we had discussed in our first session, in the very first session when we had the keynote, it's basically divided into two prime categories. One is hosting, and one are the different backend services. This session was primarily on backend service. So backend service include a lot of things. We talked about storage here. In order, if you want to upload anything to S3 or something, it gives you a very simple API that can be integrated into your applications. If you want to quickly create CRUD operations, that's already talked about in a secure way. That's what's possible. And recently, there was an announcement yesterday only when we started 30 days of Amplify. That was in beta. That was also shared in the keynote. But yesterday, formally, the AI toolkit has been released. So we are also going to talk more about the AI features in our next session. So stay tuned. So I'm sorry that we don't have more time for questions right now. But yeah, you can always connect to Vishal on the social handles, and we'll also share our Discord, the official Discord for AWS Amplify. There's a dedicated channel there called 30 Days of Amplify Public. That's running there. But yeah, again, Vishal, thank you for your time, and hope to see you around again.
Thank you. Bye bye. Have a nice day.
Thanks, Vishal. Next, we have a session from Archana. She couldn't join us live, but she has shared a recording. Just allow me a minute. Let me pull up the recording.
Hey, hi everyone, welcome to the session of 30 Days with AWS Amplify. My name is Archana Kar. I'm an Associate Solutions Architect in AWS, and today the topic that we will discuss is how to deploy a serverless web application with AWS Amplify and a few other AWS services. So we will directly go into the architecture so that it will be much better understanding. So how we will do this, how the complete architecture will be. So the simple way, so it's been a while that people have been attending this 30 days of AWS Amplify, so everybody must be aware with what AWS Amplify does. So this AWS Amplify is a set of tools and services provided by AWS that enables you, like the developers or web developers or the software professionals, to build scalable and secure full stack application faster. Like let's say you have a code base or code repository or something like that, and you upload some code to that. It doesn't get deployed there then and there, right? So you need some hosting space to host that web application. So AWS Amplify is one of the services provided by AWS to build this full stack application much faster. Okay, and it actually very much simplifies the process of developing and deploying web as well as the mobile applications. So, and it has a comprehensive suite of features for both front end and back end development. So it's a very nice service that is being provided by AWS. Then we will use Amazon API Gateway. So API Gateway is a fully managed service provided by AWS, okay, and it allows developers to create, publish, maintain, monitor, secure any application programming interface at any scale, right, at a large scale as well. So how exactly it works? So it acts as a front door for the applications to access data, or let's say business logic, or let's say functionality from the backend services, and the backend services by means AWS services or the on-premises resources as well. So this is a gateway to access all those things. So we will use Amazon API, AWS API Gateway. Then we will use AWS Lambda. So Lambda is a serverless offering from AWS. Okay, so this is an event-driven compute service, and this lets you run your code for virtually any type of application or backend service without provisioning or managing the service, of course. So you can run your Python code, your Node.js code, all these things in Lambda, and this is since this is a serverless offering, you don't have to be very much worried about the servers and managing those servers. So we will trigger this AWS Lambda here using API calls. Okay, then we will use a DynamoDB database to store some data. So DynamoDB again is a fully managed serverless key value NoSQL database basically, and it is actually it is designed to run high performance applications at a very large scale, at any scale. Okay, so this is what these are the services we will use, and then there is IAM role and IAM policy to secure your service calls, your communication between all the services. Then we have a Python code, and then there is so this will be the entire architecture, and what we are going to do here in this particular architecture. So we will deploy a static website using AWS Amplify. As you can see, this is the first service in our architecture. So we will deploy a static website, or HTML, CSS static website. Then we will create a serverless function using AWS Lambda, of course. Then we will build a REST API with API gateway, Amazon API gateway. So how the data, there will be calls, there will be invokes, like the Amazon API will invoke the AWS Lambda, and then the data will be stored in our Amazon DynamoDB NoSQL database. Okay, and then we will manage all the permission, as I mentioned, with IAM policy, and will integrate this front-end code with the backend service. This is how the entire service will work. Okay, so let's directly go to our AWS console, and we will see how we can do all this, how we can deploy all these things. So this is how the console looked like. Okay, this is how the Amplify. Let me search again so that it is very much visible for you. Okay, so this is how the Amplify looks like. So I have created already 2 apps, because sometimes it takes some time. So I have already created, we'll go through this. So that's how you can create an app using your AWS Amplify. So you just go search in the search box AWS Amplify, go to create new app, and then you start building your app with Amplify, right? Okay, so where exactly is you choose your code base. It is GitHub, Bitbucket, Code Commit, GitLab, any thing you can choose. You can deploy without Git as well. Either you put a zip file or you give S3 location, whatever works for you. You can do that. You can use a template as well. Let's say I use a code commit. I like using code commit this way. So let's go to the next. Here you can see I have 2 repos. This is the main branch. Then we go to next, and then you go do the deployment. Okay, so there are many settings that is available. So there is app settings that you give the app name. There are build settings if you have any front end build command or any build output directly that you want to put, so that you can put. So edit YAML file, if you want to do it, better not to do, because sometimes sometimes you get some error when you deploy your application if you edit it on the fly. Then service role, you should create a new service role. Like if you have already created a service role, then use that service role, or create a service role policy that will be used as part of this to deploy the application. Then you have some advanced settings as well. Okay, so you can see like where exactly your image is being built. If you want to put some environment variable for the same, then you just go to next, and you can see, and you can just do save and deploy. I have already saved and deployed. So we'll just go to all the apps. You can see this is the app that I have deployed. Okay, this is how we deploy the app. So now now that we are familiar with how this AWS Amplify console basically works, we will directly go to our static website deployment. As I mentioned, it will be a simple HTML CSS file with some JavaScript to a basic field and submit button, a basic static page, right? Okay, so let's say a topic, let's say for this AWS Amplify as well, we will use to submit some topic, right? So when you submit some topic, you give your name, your first name, last name, mobile number, your email ID, and all these things. So we will deploy a very static website considering that, and then once we deploy that, we will see how we configure our API gateway, how we configure our Lambda, and how we store our data into our DynamoDB. So if I go to, so as I mentioned, as a code base, I like to use code commit. So if you go, this is how, again you just go search in the AWS console, AWS code commit, you find this code commit and just go to your repositories. Whatever repository you have created, I have 2 repositories, so I'm saying 2. So you can just create the repository, and just if you want to use some KMS key as well, some to protect it, encryption, to encrypt your code, then you can use that as well. So I have already created the repository. So if I go to the repository, you can see I have a HTML page, right? Simple HTML page. So if I go into the HTML page, if you'll see, it's a simple HTML structure, like it uses HTML5, and then like in the left to right text direction, you can see all the background color I have put together. So it is, you can see the portal name being topic submission portal, and then it has a head section with all the meta information, right? The title, the styles, the JavaScript will come into picture. Then if you see the body, if you see the body contains your first name, your last name, your phone number, all these 3 fields, and there will be a submit button. Okay, and the button click, you can see on click it will call the API. Okay, so CSS styling I have put together with some like white background and some color and all those CSS styling that you can put considering how you like your website to be looking. Then we have this JavaScript functionality. So how this is a main part, if you'll see. So JavaScript functionality, it is a call API function is defined to handle the form submission. Okay, so it constructs a JSON payload from the input values. Then the function uses the fetch API to send a post request to specific API endpoint. If you will see the method, the request option we have using is the method as a post. Then on the successful submission, it displays an alert with the response message, whatever you want to put it put. So I have put this because I just wanted to see if it is the submission, just it is showing the submission successful, or how the no message is returned. That's why, just to check like a testing position, I have used this kind of alert. Okay, so this is what this JavaScript will do. Then the form structure, you can see like normal topic submission portal, then you have name and everything. Then the API integration, if you will see, so in the script, if you will see here, we have using, so use the fetch API. I have used all the comments also in the call, in the code, so that it will be easier for you. So if you'll see, use the fetch API to send the request to the specified URL. Okay, so this is how the API integration works in here. So the form submits the data to an API endpoint. So the API endpoint being this. Okay, this is the API endpoint. I'll show you how you create the API endpoint. Then this appears to be in, like, if you'll see, is an AWS API. So this is how the API gateway the endpoint looks like. Okay, this is the API gateway endpoint, and this is likely we will connect it to a Lambda function for the invocation. Okay, now let's go ahead with now that you have created this index.html, try keeping the name as index.html, because Amplify does look for index.html. If you will put, like, let's say topic index or submission index.html, it will be a problem and the page won't load. So try keeping it as index.html. Just put your code in the code repository. Okay, now once you have put the code in the code repository, you can also check from here also. I have already added the API gateway endpoint. That's why if I check, it will again call the API gateway, so there won't be any test thing. But then you can actually create a API gateway, put this here in the fetch, and just test if your page is getting loaded. Okay, if you put the data, it won't go to the backend because you have not configured yet any Lambda, any DynamoDB for that matter. But then you can see at least the static page being loaded. Okay, so once this is done, once you put, so this is our code commit. Once we put our code to the code commit, then you go to the Amplify. So when you go to the Amplify, what you will see, just go to all the apps, create the new app. As I was mentioning, just go to the code commit, go next. search here for repository. This is the main branch. Then go here, then just go next and just save and deploy. So your data will be deployed there. Okay. So if I go to my app, if you'll see, this is deployed. So this is how you will see the main branch. This is deployed, and this is the endpoint that you will get. Okay. So you can directly go from here, visit a deployed URL, this endpoint, or just go from this domain URL. So you'll be able to see the particular endpoint. So if I go, this is the portal that you should see. Okay, the topic submission portal, and with all the name and then submit button. Okay, so once this is done, your Amplify thing is done, then we will create the AWS Lambda. Okay, so I have already opened AWS Lambda for you. Just a little back will go. Okay, just search for AWS Lambda here. So okay, give me a second. I think it should be Amplify. Yes. Okay, I'll just directly go inside this. Okay, so why Lambda? So we will create a serverless function using this AWS Lambda service. So Lambda is a serverless function that executes code in response to any event. If you'll see, there is a trigger, there is a destination, and in between there is the Lambda. So when there is some trigger, when in response to some event, then it gets the Lambda gets triggered. In response to some event, there is something coming, you are submitting something, or let's say you are entering some data into the field, then in that response the Lambda gets triggered. That's how it works, the Lambda works. Okay, so why Lambda? So it's not just Lambda, why this serverless offerings being very popular among developers, because you don't need to manage a server or worry about any like scaling or making it cost effective, updating, software update or anything. Just a simple code you put, and everything is taken care by AWS. Isn't it amazing? It's very nice to just don't worry about anything and just run your code, your piece of code. So to give you some idea, like a great example of serverless computing in real life will be a vending machine. Okay, so they send requests to the cloud, they process the job, only only somebody starts using the machine. Okay, so whenever you start using the machine, you just click on some whatever you want to get from the vending machine, and you put your mode of payment, and whenever you use it gives you the result, right? It gives you the thing that you want from the vending machine. Okay, so now if you go inside this Lambda console, you can see there is a, like we have okay, how to create a Lambda. If I'll say, I have already created, but I can just show how to create a function. Just go create a function, just put a test function name. What is the runtime? That's what I was mentioning, right? So you don't need to worry about a server installing all the Python and Node.js and all those code base inside that and just run it. So you just select the runtime, whatever you want to do. You want to run Java, Python, Ruby, Node.js, whatever you want to do. Architecture also you can choose. You want to ARM architecture, x86 architecture, just permission, some execution role. If you have already created some execution role, then you can just it's just giving the permission to your function. Okay, so if you have already created a role, use it, or it's better. So I find it very better to create a new execution role, because sometimes not always you use the same services with the Lambda, right? It can be a DynamoDB, it can be a RDS, it can be S3, whatever you're using, considering that you need to give the execution role. So even if you don't have to worry, even if you use a new role with basic Lambda permission, once the Lambda is created, you can just go into that role and you can add permission, whatever you want to add. Okay, then you just go ahead and create the function. Okay, now let's go to the function, go to our function that I have created. So this is the function I have created. So this is Python 3.12, and there is a code base, if you'll see. So this is, if you'll see, I don't know if you have some of you have already used AWS Lambda before. So this is a very new console that they have added, and there is a Amazon Q tip as well. Amazon Q recommendations also you get. This is amazing. They have, like, AWS has integrated Amazon Q with almost every services, and you can see it, like Amazon Q recommendation you're getting in the code. Okay, so you have created the function. Now just if you'll see, we'll go to the, like, once you create the function, you can just come into the function and you can just click on the code, and there exactly is the code that you should that you will run. Okay, that will get triggered on the API call. So this is a very simple function. Okay, so what this function does, this function extracts the first name and last name from the event JSON input, and then returns a context dictionary. Like if you'll see, the return is data successfully submitted, and the status code is 200, and if you'll see, there is all this first name, last name, and everything I have put. Now there can be a simple code. So if this code, if you'll see, you don't have to specifically, so let's say for testing purpose, if you're using, you can just remove all this DynamoDB table and all these things, and you can just have a simple Lambda handler with name, like with your first name, last name, phone number, and then just return hello from Lambda, or something like that, plus your name, your first name, or your first name plus phone number, you can just put together, and you can just test if your function is running fine. Okay, now here what exactly we have done, so that is a specific to your testing purpose, that Lambda we were using, right? That is specific to your testing purpose. But then here, if I go to the tab, if you'll see, the response is in REST API format. Okay, and we have put what all the, once the data is once on the submission of the data, put the data into our DynamoDB. That's how we have created this DynamoDB. That's how we have created this Lambda code, sorry. And then we have put DynamoDB, this Boto3, and then table, your table name, and just create this function that this is in your the response is in REST API format. Okay, that's how we will use the Lambda function. Okay, and for this also you can just deploy and just test it programmatically. Just you can put together all the value, like the first name. If I have done the test, done the deploy, amplify app event, if I say, if you'll see, the output is this way. Okay, the output is this way, successfully submitted, and it is coming this way. So this is how your data will be. This is how, but then every time you put the code inside your Lambda function, you should do a deploy, and then only it will work. Okay, now once we have done our Lambda code, we have created this Lambda code, we have tested this Lambda code, then we will go ahead and create this REST API with API gateway. Okay, so what we will do, we will deploy our Lambda function to the web application. Okay, so for that thing we will use Amazon API gateway to create a REST API that will let us make the request from the web browser. Okay, from the web browser, when you open up, as a layman, okay, when you open this website, and then you just go ahead with all the details and you just do the submit. Okay, so for that thing, once you do the submit, so we will use Amazon API gateway to create this the REST API, to create a REST API that will let us make the request from the web browser on button submit, right, from the web browser. So this API gateway, this acts as a bridge between your backend service like Lambda function or anything in your backend service and your front end application, that is your HTML page, web page that you are that is being loaded. Okay, and then it allows you to create APIs that expose the functionality to your web app. So if I go to my web API, you can just, how you can do, you can, okay, we'll do a API gateway, search it, open it in a new tab. Okay, so I have created this API. So you just go ahead, create a REST API. How you create it? Just go create API, do a REST API. There are different types of APIs that you can create. See, WebSocket API you can create a HTTP API, yeah, low latency, cost effective. For this we will use anyways a REST API. So you go ahead, create a new API, do some names. Okay, endpoint type, we have different endpoint type. We have regional endpoint type, edge optimized endpoint type. So for edge optimized, it will send you to the nearest CloudFront location. Okay, so this is like where exactly your customer or users are. It will send the request will be sent to the nearest edge location. So it's a very good way. It's a very, like I will say, a well architected way to use it so that there won't be any latency between the calls, right, API calls. So we'll use the edge optimize and just create an API. Okay, you can see this is how you create an API. Then you just do a method. You create a method. We need a method type as post, right? We do a post to Lambda function. You just choose the Lambda function, whatever location you are using, just choose that location, choose your Lambda function ARN from here, and then rest other things you can keep it as default. Other things are very advanced settings. If you want to do, you can do some of those like what method you want, or URL query string parameters. If you want to do something, then you can create this method. Okay, this is how I have created this API. If you'll see, this API has been created. I have created two methods. So now we have created a post method. Okay, and in the post method, the integration type we will do as I mentioned, the Lambda function. For this also, this is the Lambda function. If you'll see, the integration type is the Lambda function. The region and everything, you should make sure that you are choosing the correct region. Then select the Lambda function and then just done. And then we will enable CORS as well. So you can select, if you'll see, we have enabled CORS. So you can just click on this and you can just enable CORS. If you'll see, CORS setting option, it's just post. Okay, post, and then you can do the header is this, and you can just save it. Okay, so okay, CORS setting. So the CORS setting, as you can see, this is mentioned to allow request from scripts running in the browser. Configure CORS. Okay, for your API, when you save a configuration, replace any existing CORS setting with your new configuration. For like from scripting, to allow requests from scripting running in your web browser, you need to enable the CORS. Okay. Now once the CORS is enabled, you just deploy the API. Once the API is being deployed, you will see your okay. Once you deploy the API, you will be able to see the URL. Give me a second. Yeah. So if you do a deploy URL, do a stage whenever you do like a deploy URL. If you deploy, you will be able to see this URL, and this URL we will be using to invoke our Lambda function in the final step. In the final step, we will use this particular URL. You can copy it, keep it safe, and then we will use this URL in our final step. Okay. Now the Okay, so what we have created till now, we uploaded our code base to the AWS code commit. We created AWS Amplify web app deployment. Then we created our Lambda. We put all the details in Lambda. Then we have created our API gateway APIs. Okay, now what is the time? It's the time to create DynamoDB. Okay, so the DynamoDB, if you'll go tables, you can see I have created this table here. So this table is like this is a NoSQL database service. At the data, if you'll see in DynamoDB, AWS DynamoDB, the data is being stored in key value pairs. Okay, and where it is recommended as a best practice to use DynamoDB is because it is highly scalable and flexible. So wherever you think your data is like non-tabular data, and then you can store it, and the load is very high, it's like you require a scalable architecture, then DynamoDB is the best option to use it. Okay, so and it's suitable for various applications. Okay, so you just go ahead, create a table. How do you create it? You just go to the dashboard, just to create a table, give some name, give a partition key, ID. Like ID is a like regular, like a generic thing that we do. So just give the partition key as ID, do a table name, and just create the table. Okay, just as I have created the table, you can see I have some table data as well, because I was testing this particular web application. So I have some data as well. So if we go to explore item, I have some data, but we'll see going forward, we will see how to explore those items. So now that the table has been created, if you'll see, our table has been created. Okay, so this when we do the table, once the table is created, so you can see there is this ARN, right, Amazon resource name. So we will use this ARN when we create our IAM access. Why? I will tell you. And where exactly so where exactly we will add, you'll get to know why we are using this ARN inside our IAM policy. Okay, so IAM policy, let me open it. IAM is okay, yeah. So IAM actually is it's the most basic and most important thing to be set up. Okay, for any application, for any customers, IAM is the best one. If you want to restrict some access, you can't give access to the services, everyone the access to the same service or the same permission you can't give to the same everyone, right, in your like across your organization. So I have seen that a lot of people neglect it, setting up IAM policy whenever they deploy some 3-tier web application or any for that matter, any architecture, right? But for improved security, it's always recommended a least privileged access model. If you have heard about it, you should always implement a least privileged access model inside your organization. Whichever team needs to access which things, you should just give those permission to those team unless and until it is very much needed. Okay, so the least privileged access model means not giving a user more than needed access that I mentioned. Okay, for example, let's say even for this, like this simple web application project, we have already worked on many services till now, right? There is Amplify, there is DynamoDB, there is Lambda, there is API gateway. So it's very essential to understand how they communicate with each other and what kind of information they share. Okay, just that I mentioned that from Lambda the data will go to database, your DynamoDB database. Which database? Like which database? And if the Lambda should have the access to send data to only your DynamoDB, that particular ARN database, not any other database. that is the least privilege access that you give to the services. So it again includes your teams, your users and everyone. So this is how you should do, right? You should always implement the least privilege access, which is a best practice. Now let's go back to our Lambda, where exactly we will do our IAM. So if you'll see, this is our Lambda, this is the code. If you go to the configuration and if you go to the permission, you can see there is a role. This is the exact role that we created when we created the Lambda, that we use a new role. We didn't use an existing role, we used a new role. If you click on this, this will take you to your IAM role. So this is the role. Now once we have that role, you can go to that role. I have already added the permission, that's why we are seeing that this is Amplify app policy Lambda, but primarily when you see, it won't be there. You'll have to give this a permission. So you just go add permission, attach policy. Either you can do a DynamoDB full access, which is not recommended. So what you should do, never give a full access, okay? Always try to restrict it so that it falls under the best practice. So just create some inline. The service you can just directly go to the JSON, and here exactly you can put what your your statement is there. You can put this sed as like any editor or something. The effect will be allowed, and the action you can put some of the things like what DynamoDB. I have already added these things. I'll show you there, but how you can add, I'm just showing you. Okay, put item, now get item, now scan, query, all these things you can do. If this is like, I have already come here, that's why it is showing that this is a syntax error. So this, and in the resource, considering the least privilege access, just give your DynamoDB table ARN. This is where exactly you will need that DynamoDB table ARN. Okay, now if I'll go back, cancel, okay, continue. Okay, now you go here, see, I have added. So this is allow, put item, delete item, get, scan, query, update, and then the resource I have added as particularly my DynamoDB. So this is now falling under your least privilege access. Very much specific to your specific table we are giving the access to Lambda. Okay, now you put your data, all these things, your DynamoDB table ARN. Now give a policy name and then create the policy, and this policy will allow your Lambda function to read, edit, delete and update items from the DynamoDB table. Okay, in case you don't want DynamoDB Lambda to delete or update, like delete anything from your table, then just don't give that access. Okay, just remove that and then give other accesses, and that's how the data will flow into your DynamoDB. Got it? Now the DynamoDB thing is done. Now if you'll go to your Lambda, you can see this is the code base we have given, DynamoDB table name we have given, the handler you can see. Okay, now the event first name, the last name, phone number, the name, we are just adding everything in here so that you can just return like, okay, hi, just my name is Archana Kar and my phone number is 0000. So it can be a hi, hello from Lambda, Archana Kar 00000. Okay, that's how it can be. The item, you can see the ID we have given as a like a table put item, right? The response is a table put item, and then the primary key we have given as ID and the latest greeting time. So if I'll show you a small thing so that you'll get how the data will be looking. See, this is how the data will be looking and this is how the ID will be looking. Perfect. This is how it's done. Now the response you can see is REST API format. You just test it, deploy it. Okay, now coming to the front end code, make sure everything is, considering your all the services that you just created, make sure everything is added specific to your architecture, your environment. Okay, you can see this is the one that I had copied from my Amplify, my API gateway, right? My API key, not API gateway, my API key. So this is the API key that I have added. Request option we have put already post. Okay, so this is how you edit your front end. Once you edit the front end, just go to your app. It is deployed. Now visit this app. Okay, if you go, the first name, anything, Raj. Okay, this is Malhotra. The number being this. Just do a submit. If you'll see the submission but no message written, that's what we are. There must be some error or something there must be some error or something from your API connection. That's why we are seeing this error. So okay, now if you go to your, see, this is what we are getting in here. The data is being stored. Okay, so this is how you can do your entire serverless web application deployment. So now if you'll see, our data tables receive the post request with the entered data. The Lambda function invokes the API when the call API button is clicked. Okay, so if you'll see the you see, this is the call API, you can see. Okay, whenever there is this call API button is type button on click, you can see this is clicked. So that's how the Lambda function gets invoked, and then using this JavaScript we send the data in JSON format to the API. This is this JavaScript, you can see. Then you can find like all this exactly this particular JavaScript, you will be able to see all the things that is mentioned. Then this connect finally this call API, all the AWS Amplify, your API gateway, Lambda, DynamoDB and IAM service together, they created this basic end-to-end web application. Okay, I hope this helped you guys. I tried to put together as much as best practices as I could put during the entire session. So yeah, this is your serverless web application deployment using Amplify Gateway, Lambda and DynamoDB. Thanks a lot for joining today, and yeah, keep learning, keep trying new things in AWS Cloud, and I'm there in LinkedIn. Do ping me if you have any query, do ping me if you want to know something about AWS, how well architected architectures work, how AWS Amplify works, what are more best practices that you can follow, and happy to help at any time. Thanks a lot.
Hey guys, sorry I was on mute. um, Thanks, Archana, for a great session. And let's move on to our next phase, next section, the most awaited one for the day, the quiz. Avinash, over to you.
Thank you, Aman. Let me share my screen quickly. Start the quiz. Share screen. Do- So, can you put my screen on stage? Yeah. So here I am starting the quiz. Okay, so let's see. I think so far 3 people are there. Just give a couple of minutes, then we can kick start.
Can you post in the link to join again? I think
Yeah.
it's the last comment only.
Yeah, people are joining now. Last 1 minute to wait, and then we'll start.
A kind reminder to everyone that the last date of hackathon entries has been extended. It was earlier today, but now the last date has been extended to 23rd of November. So you still have time, and Amplify is known to um, go to production in hours, just right from the idea. So you still have time. Go ahead and participate.
Okay, let's get started with the first question. And here we are. What service power the authentication functionality in AWS Amplify? Is that AWS IAM, Amazon Incognito, AWS Directory Service, or AWS Security Hub? So if you have given attention to those, I think wow, super fast. 3 people already answers, one is not. No worry, you can still do it. Go to the next question. Which of the following accurately describe the AWS Amplify data store? A simple file storage, a relation database service, sync enable local database with a cloud synchronization, or a caching service for the DynamoDB? And answer is sync enable local database with the cloud synchronization. Okay, only one person, two participant has been given the answer right. So Raja is leading the leaderboard now. Let's see. Next question, that is the second last question of the quiz. When using AWS Amplify API functionality, which API type are natively supported? REST API, GraphQL API, SOAP API, both GraphQL and REST API. If you given attention to the Vishal session, you shall be able to answer it. Wow, 4 participants given a very good right answer. Both GraphQL and REST API. So now we'll head to the last question of the quiz. Let's go. What is the correct method to save data using Amplify Data Store? Datastore.create, .save, .put, or .insert. Okay, and answer is datastore.save. And here with this, we are ending our quiz today. Let's end and see the leaderboard. Congratulations, Rupa, Ravi, and Raja are the top one. So I will hand over to the Aman to close the session. Thank you, Aman.
Thanks all for participating. And yeah, join us back on Saturday for an exciting AI Day. And also, in case you are in Bangalore, there is a in-person event which is happening in Bangalore for AWS Amplify, 30 days of AWS Amplify. Um, More information would be emailed to the registrants. In case you have still not registered, do register in the link that we will just provide in the chat. Thank you all, and see you again later. Bye.